Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Apothecary and welcome back to my channel. I am back with another weekly reading update. Today is February 22nd. I'm going to start with the books that I finished, then we'll move on to what I'm currently reading, and then we'll talk about what I'm reading next. First up with the books that I finished. I finished 3 books so far. This week I finished Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. I was listening to the audiobook version of this and it was fantastic. This is a post-American Civil War dystopian story with Shamblers, which are zombies, and a young black queer protagonist, and it was completely engaging for me. Every minute of that audiobook, I was hooked. After that, I finished The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, and let me tell y'all, this book is so unique, so different than anything I have ever read before. This is a Native American supernatural revenge story, which is also partly historical fiction, and like I said, it was so good. Very, very haunting. Some of those images that he painted in there with his descriptions will stay in my head rent-free forever. There are parts in the Goodreads descriptions and other places where descriptions are and reviews that will mention something else that is kind of a big part of the story, and it's not really spoiler-free, but for me, it's one of those parts, one of those things that is much more exciting to stumble upon as you're reading it than to already know when you're going into it. When I know that this element is part of a book that I'm reading, I personally sometimes approach that book in a different way, and I feel like if I knew that this element was in the Buffalo Hunter, I would have approached this book differently and I wouldn't have had the same reading experience. It's part of the supernatural theme to this book, and I'm just going to leave it there. If you all want to know more, then you can go and look up the descriptions or check out some other reviews. Lots of reviews mention it. I am probably on the very few that don't want to mention it because I want other people to have that same exciting experience that I had. But I don't hold it against you if you want to go and check it out, because I probably wouldn't be able to not look it up either. So I don't blame you if you do. And then the last book that I have finished is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This book is so adorable, y'all. This is about a witch who is basically recruited to train 3 very young witches, and this house is like the definition of found family. It has a gay couple, it has a grumpy bachelor who is essentially the de facto dad of these 3 young girls. It has our main character who is a young witch who is just trying to find her way in the world. She was raised with the idea that if too many witches got together at once, or even just 2 witches at once, it would create chaos in the world and basically ruin the world. And then she's recruited in on this mission and she learns that that's not the case. And she's trying to figure out life with this idea now. It is adorable. It is a romance, but the romance is so small in this book that, like, for like the spice level, I would give it like a 1 or 2. It's barely even there. Yes, there's talk about them doing stuff. There's kissing, but it's so minimal and the language is like kind of YA-ish language in there that it barely ranks on the spice scale, but I loved that book. Now, what I'm working on right now, I've got a lot of things going as usual. We have The Lotus Eaters by Tatiana Solji, which is the historical fiction book about Vietnam. We are in the middle of the Vietnam War, about to is getting to the part where the Americans there are starting to realize they're not going to win this war, and it's really interesting, but like I've said before, a really slow build, a really slow prose, but really interesting. I've also got The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux going. This one is also a slow book, and I'm not sure I'm going to completely like this one by the end. I'm going to stick with it for now and see if it gets better as it goes. But so far, I am not sold by it. 2 books that I am sold by so far, but still in the very beginnings of, is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This was a patron pick by Leslie, and I'm listening to the audiobook version of this. And chapter 1 had me crying already. This girl is, I think she's like 15, and she's pregnant, and her family doesn't want her. No one in her community wants her. And her father basically sends her off to this home for girls just in her situation. They have their babies and then they're sent back to their real world and are supposed to pretend like nothing ever happened. They adopt the babies out to families that are supposed to want them. And I'm really interested to see where this is going to go. I haven't quite hit that witchcraft part yet, but I am so intrigued to see where this comes in. And then the other book that I am currently in the middle of, I actually just started it yesterday. That is the immersion read of Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. I have heard such great things about this from a lot of people, but especially Leslie at the Nerdy Narrative. She absolutely loves this series, and I needed another book on my Reddit fantasy bingo square, so I thought this would be a great book. I think I have this one in for the survival square. I'm loving it so far, but I'm only like 1 chapter in, so I'm still very early. After all that, I will be hitting up some books to finish off my fantasy Reddit bingo board. I have just 3 left after all of these books. I'm going to be reading The Curse of the Mistwraith by Janny Wirtz. Another recommendation from Leslie at the Nerdy Narrative, but also Janny Wirtz is so nice on social media. I can't wait to read her works. The Great Bastards by Jonathan French. Ironically, yet another recommendation from Leslie. She said the first 2 books are fantastic, but the 3rd book is not, but I'm really excited to get into that one. And then a classic, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I have yet to read this book, but I really want to, and I think I own it in both physical and audio format, so I'm really excited for that immersion read. That is what I've been up to in my reading this past week. Let me know in the comments below, what was your favorite reading adventure from this last week? What are you looking forward to reading the most in this next week? As always, keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back. Bye.